You're listening to the Patriot Nation Podcast.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation Podcast. As always, a proud member of the CLNS Group Podcast. Make sure you down subscribe to all those great shows to get great Patriots content all week long. But tonight, it's your boys over at Pats Nation Network, and Kayshon Boutte's been traded. I mean, you know, this is where we're at. We didn't think we'd have a show until Thursday, and here we are. Patriots making a move to move on from Kayshon Boutte, and you know, say whatever you want about Boutte. It's so funny watching clips from his rookie year when he was wearing 80 and Pop's wearing 81. And I'm like watching the clip of it and I'm like, who the hell are those guys, 80 and 81? I'm like, oh my God, 80's Kayshon Boutte, right? They almost came back and won that Eagles game if he doesn't get if he gets his feet down. But yeah. So, but you know, he was a very good player for the Patriots. Kind of built himself into that. Obviously was a guy that, you know, still holds the record for most receiving yards in an NFL game or in a game by an LSU wide receiver. So you know the history of LSU, it's pretty impressive. But, you know, had some off-field issues and really kind of willed himself into a good player, has matured quite a bit. And so you got to be happy for the guy.
Yeah, no, and I think the genesis of this trade here is that you only have so many wide receiver snaps to go around. And you know, Boutte's a good player. He's a useful player. He helps you win football games. He's also a guy who doesn't quite fit the puzzle you've built and who quite rightly wants to earn the opportunity to be paid what he's worth. And that's not going to happen in New England this season unless multiple guys get hurt. You know, then you can plan for depth, but like, you need to plan for depth all around the roster, not just at one position. So, you know, he's going to go to a Houston team that badly needed an additional outside wide receiver with Jaden Higgins being out for the season now. He'll have an opportunity to go there. I mean, he might just play 1 year in Houston with Higgins coming back the year after. We'll see what happens here. But he'll earn the opportunity to get targets, to get snaps in an offense that, you know, they're I think the way things ended for Stroud, people have gotten a little bit too low on him. He's not a top 10 quarterback, but he's also not awful. I think he's just an average starter. And he'll go be a top target share guy in that offense, probably be the number 2 receiver in that offense, and hopefully be able to go get the money that he deserves in free agency after this.
Yeah. From the player perspective, right? And this is, you know, there's a few angles to look at this. Obviously, you want to make your football team as good as you can, right? But part of this, too, is doing right by your players, right? And that's not necessarily business, but it also is, right? The more you take care of your players, the more players are going to want to come play for you. And so the Patriots, you know, moving on from Boutte, and what's challenging for me, and this is the hard thing for me to wrap my head around, they traded him to a contender in the AFC. They traded him to a team who they might see again in the playoffs, and then they're going to have to deal with him in the playoffs. And they think he's a good player, but obviously don't think he's that good of a player, right? But it's, you know, he's going into a good situation where he's going to be able to prove himself. And so, you know, from that side of it, you say, well, yeah, the Patriots have been taking care of their guys. Vrabel's a former player. They care about that stuff. And so they take care of their guy who they're really not going to be able to use a ton this year. You know, and that's one way of looking at it.
I'm going to be honest. I don't think that weighed into this at all. I think when you like Kayshon Boutte is a guy who I think clearly wants to have a year to be the receiver he thinks he can be and then go hit the market. The only teams that are going to be interested in a guy like that already are going to be teams that are in contention to a degree. You know, a team that could use a receiver as good as him, like the Las Vegas Raiders. They're not trading for him right now because they're trying to build from the guys that they have with it. They're not looking for a guy who's going to come in, play for a year, and leave. And I'm not saying Boutte isn't going to be willing to re-sign with someone, right, but I think he at least clearly feels that him being like a 500-yard guy is not his ceiling, that he can be much more than that, and he wants to go prove that and then get the money that comes with that. And, no shame in that at all.
Yeah.
But there's only a certain type of team that's going to be that interested in that profile of receiver. And I think from the Patriots side of things, making this deal becomes a lot easier the way Kyle Williams has played for you the last couple weeks. He's their leading receiver in the preseason. He's the only guy that has multiple touchdowns. He has been, it's against 2s and 3s, but he looks like a starter against 2s and 3s. He looks better than everybody else on the field when he's playing. And then the fact that you're trading Boutte to Houston in the conference, I think you could see what the Patriots say about a player, but you have to look at the actions here. With Kayshon Boutte on the team, they signed Romeo Doubs. They traded a first-round pick for A.J. Brown. And they traded Boutte to a team that they may have to face if they want to go to the Super Bowl. These are not actions that tell you that the Patriots think super highly of Kayshon Boutte.
Right.
I'm sure they don't think he's like a bad player or anything, but the actions of the Patriots here tell you that they think he's closer to the 500, 600 yard per year guy than 800, 900,000 yards per year.
Yeah.
And, you could disagree with it, and the Patriots might be wrong on that. They also have better intel on who Boutte is than any other NFL team does right now.
Of course, yeah. What's interesting to me, the first thing I thought of was Drew Bledsoe. That was the first thing I saw. He was going to Texans. I'm like, oh, it's like Drew Bledsoe, where obviously Brady beats out Bledsoe, and the Patriots are trading Bledsoe somewhere. They trade him anywhere, and they trade him to Buffalo in the division, right? And that to me was a statement that, like, hey, yeah, we like Bledsoe, but we're not worried about him, And so you could certainly make the same, similar argument here with Boutte. Oh, we got a Red Sox update from Murph here. Red Sox up 4-2. Looks like they scored 2 runs.
Did you see
the ninth?
Real quick? Did you see how they tied the game?
I did not.
Here's the sequence for you. Will your Abreu lead off double? Wilson Contreras gets hit by a pitch. Abreu gets third. Adley Rutschman to the warning track in center field. Abreu advances to third. Durbin comes up, shows bunt on the first pitch, doesn't bunt. Shows bunt on the second pitch. Pitcher is clearly trying to make sure he doesn't give him a pitch he can bunt. Wild pitch past the catcher. Abreu scores from third.
Love it.
Yeah,
love it.
That's baseball stuff right there.
Yep. Down 1 in the 8th and winning 4-2. And they got to win the game still, but still. But that's so. Anyways, I think it is an interesting statement there, where it's like, we like you, we don't like you that much that we're worried about you being, in this case, it's not in the divisions, in the conference, but still, same idea. It's another contender in the conference that they might have to deal with in the playoffs.
Well, I don't want to dump on Boutte as he's going out of town here.
No.
He's part of. He will forever be a part of Patriots lore. It'll be the answer to the trivia question: who caught Drake May's first ever touchdown?
Very true.
And I think the fact that that touchdown is Drake May's first moment in New England, and then Boutte's last moment in New England is same end zone against the same corner to win a playoff game, like that one-handed catch. These are iconic moments. I also think you look at some of the underlying stuff, and it's like one of the reasons Boutte's not a starter on this team. He doesn't play in the slot. He's an outside-only receiver.
Mm-hmm.
He's a possession guy. We have not seen that yards after catch ability. To be fair, he hasn't necessarily been put in a spot for it. But we haven't seen the yak guy that he was when he was at LSU. And a significant amount of his production has been basically as a possession receiver on downfield throws. When I was going through research on this last year, the only similar profile guy to that is like Brandon Lloyd. Like this is a type of receiver that there aren't very many of in the NFL. And if you're one of 31 other NFL teams from the outside, I think it's going to be very difficult to figure out how much of this production down the field is because Kayshon Boutte is very good at this, and how much of this production down the field is because Drake May is very good at this.
Right.
And when the guy, it's really, I think we were to a spot now where it's Boutte and Kyle Williams fighting to be the fourth wide receiver on this team. Kyle Williams has downfield ability, and like a lot of Boutte's catches have been kind of contested ones down the field to a degree, or making plays at the catch point. You don't see Kyle Williams doing that as much because he just burns guys down the sideline. There's a lot more separation there. And, I think you could make an argument that that's a more sustainable approach. That's the argument the Patriots seem to be making with this move. We will see if that's how it pans out on the field. But I think they're banking on, if Boutte, a sixth-round pick, can get that kind of chemistry with May and perform like that, Kyle Williams, a guy who, we've seen what he did in the preseason, where they liked him, they traded up for him in the draft. We think it can get to this level with Drake May, and obviously they think highly of Dobbs because they signed him. They think highly of AJ Brown because they traded for him. And I think maybe this is something I should have brought up earlier. I think maybe the most under-discussed part of the wide receiver stuff in New England is that Stephon Diggs was on a pitch count last year. He wasn't on the field for 90% of snaps the way you would expect a number one receiver to be. He was an older guy. He was coming back from an injury. They eased him in. There were a lot of times where they would take him out. I don't think A.J. Brown's doing that this year. I don't think you do that with the guy you're trading a first-round pick for. I'm not sure if you're doing that for Romeo Dobbs. I think last year they spread the ball around because Diggs is a guy who had to come on and off the field. This year, I think you're going to run the offense through a couple guys at the receiver position. And when it gets to that, wide receiver depth is important, but we're going to talk about who they got back in the trade. So is depth at other positions,
which is fair, and that's fair. And I just think, the challenging part, and this is what's difficult, is as a fan of the team, when you have players on the team, you tend to overvalue the players on the team because they're on your team, especially when said player or players make great plays for you, right? That catch against Darrell, I mean, again, you mentioned he's the, trivia in the fact that he caught the first touchdown pass from Drake May. Trivia also in the fact that Derek Stingley, he's the only guy to catch multiple touchdown passes from like 20 yards plus on Derek Stingley in his career.
Well, I think Stingley's allowed like 3 of them, and Boutte has 2, I believe, is the number.
Yes, he just does not give them up. I think they said in the last 2 years he's given up touchdowns to like JSN, like just touchdowns period, to like the best receivers in the NFL, and then Kayshon Boutte twice. It's just like and again, it's 2 plays. It's not indicative of he's out there toasting Stingley or anything, but like, it's still significant when you look at the fact that, hey, like these are important moments, right? One of them at the end of the first half in a game that was 14-0 at the time. And one of them, as you mentioned, at the end of, towards the end of this game in the playoffs, right? So, it becomes one of those things where you look at it and say, okay, like, yes, it matters. And yes, sure, there are, we can kind of look at it and say, all right, well, we feel like, it should go better, or there are other players. But like, he did it when it mattered, he did it, and he came through in some big moments. Now, he only had 33 catches last year, right? It's not like he was, it's not like he was like some consistent, dominant player for them. But he made big catches in big moments. And so for us, then we look at it and we say, hey, like, that's a good player, right? And I think Boutte was a good player. Now, I understand your point about the fact that guys are not there. I get that. All right. That, you have AJ Brown and you have Romeo Dobbs and you have, Kyle Williams. Kyle Williams isn't above Kayshon Boutte in the depth chart, but sure, Kyle Williams. And you have, Matt Collins, and you have those guys. I get that. If one of those guys goes down with an injury, and by the way, Romeo Dobbs injured basically every year. AJ Brown injured basically every year. Maybe only a game or two, but still, right? Matt Collins last year missed the last however many games of the season, right? With a foot injury or an ankle injury of some sort, right? Or no, it wasn't that. It was like an arm injury, whatever it was. He missed it sometime last year. So when these guys miss time, you're trying to be a Super Bowl contending team. You have depth at this position. Now you're giving away a known commodity. And again, I think Murph puts it well for this. Like, you moved down from something you knew you had for something you hope to develop. We're going to talk about Reed after the break, but like, that was my biggest concern is that, and Mike Vrabel said it in his press conference. We don't have a ton of depth on this team. The one position you have depth, you then traded probably your best depth player for whatever. I know people are higher on Reed than I am, but
the Patriots still have depth at receiver. Like they still have a very good receiver room right now. And Boutte was wide receiver 4 in this group. Let's not forget, Kayshon Boutte, 551 receiving yards last year. Mac Hollins, 550 receiving yards last year. You mentioned that Kayshon Boutte always stepped up in the big moments. Yeah, we're talking about the divisional round. Right. Where was he in the AFC Championship game? Where was he in the Super Bowl? And again, he's a solid player, but like his production wise last year he played one fewer game than Mac Hollins did last year. He had essentially the same production as him last year. Right. Hollins brings more as a blocker, and Hollins is like he's also just going to be your wide receiver 5. You're going to try to develop Kyle Williams, and I'd say the other part of this is that like I think when you look at what Kyle Williams did in the preseason games, I think it's hard to have that happen and say we're not going to reward you with more playing time. If you move him up, if you make him wide receiver 4, keep Boutte, say Boutte is going to be wide receiver 5, he has very little trade value at that point. If you said, because at that point, how many snaps is he going to play again? He's going to play what? 5 snaps a game if he's wide receiver 5? Because if you're trying to develop Kyle Williams, he's a nice insurance policy. But like if Kayshon Boutte is sitting there as your wide receiver 5 while the offense is scoring 29 points per game and you're still losing games because the defense is giving stuff up, you're going to sit there and say, well, what are we doing? Like you have to try to fill out 53 guys on this roster. And like Boutte's a good player. He's a useful player.
Right.
I just think that, it's easy to remember the Texans game last year. That was not the last game of the season. They played 2 more games after that. And the offense as a whole, at every position group except for quarterback, looked outgunned at all those other positions. That's why they got Reggie Gilliam and Elijah Vera Tucker and Julian Hill and A.J. Brown and Romeo Doubs this offseason.
Right. So which are all fair points. And I think the big question is going to be, what does the return look like? And that's what we're going to talk about after the break. We'll take a quick break here, and then we'll talk about the return the Patriots got for Kayshon Boutte. But in the meantime, it's a scorching sports summer, and you can make all your picks on Prize Picks. Women's basketball and baseball are heating up, and every football preseason game kicks off this month on Prize Picks. And with big tennis slams and major golf tournaments on the horizon, there's no better place for all your summer sports picks than Prize Picks, America's #1 sports picks app. And yes, it's the preseason, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. We're almost done, but that means that the picks on here are guys you don't normally get to pick. Tommy Cutlets is out there. Tommy 2 Chainz isn't happening. Tommy Cutlets is out here. Like, we got it. You got him in your lineup. You can't do that the rest of the regular season. So you can do that for all those things. I had Joe Milton in my lineup this weekend because how fun is that as Joe Milton? Like, this is great. So get in on the preseason action, and then you'll have it all regular season long as well. To do that, you're going to download the Prize Picks app today. You're going to use the code CLNS, and you're going to get $150 instantly in lineups if you win your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app Prize Picks today. Use the code CLNS to get $150 instantly in lineups if you win your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, America's #1 sports picks app. Okay, so the return for what the Patriots got, they got Jaylen Reed and a 2028 7th round pick. That's nothing. That doesn't count. The 2028 7th round pick is irrelevant. It's basically nothing. Okay, it's not. Here's the thing.
Because it's like, I think that I'm gonna guess this is one of those where they were trying to do a player for player trade, and the Patriots said you got to throw something else in.
Right.
And that's what they throw in.
It is from the Saints, which the Saints are
should be a high 7.
Saints could be okay, but
yeah, it's in 2 years, so like we'll see what comes of that. The 7th is what it is. It's a nice throw in. It probably amounts to nothing, but it's a lottery pick,
right?
And that what matters there, I think, is the volume, which the Patriots have amassed a lot of day 3 picks.
Yeah, it's true. It's definitely true. And so the Patriots get back in return. They get Jaylen Reed, a 23-year-old safety, 6 feet flat, 212 pounds, from Penn State, drafted in the 6th round last year, 187 overall. I'm curious what Kayshon Boutte was drafted because he was also drafted in the 7th round, in the 6th round. That'd be interesting if he was 187. I doubt he was, but
it is
probably.
funny. We're talking about we were just saying the 7th round is nothing. We're talking about 2 guys that were drafted in the 6th round. Right.
It's a fair point. That's a fair point.
we can't say that 2028 7th is worth nothing, and also say we can't trade Kayshon Boutte because he's too good. Because these guys,
my God, Matt, this is the coolest. All right, I'm in. I'm done. You've convinced me on the trade.
Yeah, man.
Kayshon Boutte and Jaylen Reed were both drafted at pick 187. Come on. I mean, that's so cool. That's so ridiculous. What a random thing. But the fact that they are both drafted in the same pick is foolish. But nevertheless, so exactly the same pick 3 years later, 2025, played a few games for Houston last year. Actually, I think started both playoff games.
Yeah.
Didn't play a ton last year, but
he was banged up in the regular season. And
it says safety, right? It says safety. But to me, he looks almost more like a linebacker-ish, hybrid-ish, right? I think he's more of a box guy, in my opinion.
I would still say safety because it's when you watch Houston play, they play a lot of the cover 4 schemes. So they will ask, like the safeties will play 12 yards from the line of scrimmage and will rotate a lot. And he will rotate back and take middle of the field zones. This isn't like Marte Mapu coming out where it was like, I don't know if he can play back there.
Right.
He can do that. He's at his best coming downhill. I think when you watch him play, the thing that stands out the most, he hits hard. He's physical. You may have seen the clip going around on Twitter, but there's a clip of him, I want to say against Iowa. There's like a bad snap, and the guy's running around behind the line of scrimmage.
Flies in at the quarterback.
Almost like a wrestling move, and the guy's helmet flies off when he tackles him.
No, it was his helmet that flew off.
It was his helmet. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
He's inconsistent. That's why he goes to the 6th round. His tackling form is inconsistent, but when he hits you, it's very physical. We say 6th round pick. By the consensus boards, I think he was like 152 or 154. So this was a faller, a guy. This is probably a guy people thought was going to be in play when the Patriots took Craig Woodson. When the Patriots reached to take Craig Woodson, and this guy fell instead. That's basically how it went.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and Murph says here too, he added light, by the way, at the end of this, but if we're lucky, he's Patrick Chung light. Right. And I can see that comp, as far as like the type of player that Chung was. My big issue here, and listen, maybe he's a value, maybe he ends up being a rotational player for the Patriots. I don't know. My big issue is that John Saunders looked great in camp. Del Pettis, I think, has played well. Now, maybe they're not as high on Del Pettis as I thought they were. I thought Del Pettis has played really well all camp. But nevertheless, maybe one or both of those guys aren't where we think the Patriots have them, right? But like, or maybe they're saying, you know what? Screw the linebackers. We're going to play a ton of dime, and we're really only going to have one, maybe 2 linebackers on the field the whole game. So it doesn't matter that we have linebacker depth. We need more safety depth because we're going to be playing with 4 safeties on the field most of the game. 3 to 4 safeties in the game. So it doesn't matter whether we have linebackers or not. And maybe that's the way they're going with this, but like, it just felt like they needed an off-ball linebacker because they literally don't have one after Christian Ellis. And so you're like, okay, you get 2 guys and then there's nobody. But again, maybe they're just saying, screw it, we don't need linebackers, we're going to play with a bunch of safeties. And so this guy fits in that mold.
No, I think that's exactly what they're saying. I said, well, first of all, like a week ago or a week and a half ago, we were asking, is it possible for John Saunders to make this roster? So I like him. I think he's earned his way onto the roster. I think he and Del Pettis is someone who has not, I don't want to say hasn't impressed me in the preseason, but I don't feel like I've seen anything from Del Pettis that I didn't already know.
Yeah.
I think he's a depth safety. I think he's fine. I just think he's just a depth safety. We've talked about this Patriots secondary. We've talked about how we like the 5 starters when they're a nickel and how there's a drop off after that. And in particular, we talked about how the drop off after that is with middle of the field defenders. We've kind of talked about how that weak spot, like if it's the 6th defensive back or the 3rd linebacker or whatever it is, that guy in that spot, that's probably the weakest spot on the defense right now, other than edge. And he fits in that role. I'm going to make the comparison here, like not ceiling comparison, role, like Duron Harmon. He's like the inverse Duron Harmon to me. What made Duron Harmon so special for the Patriots was that he was a quality free safety. And him being a free safety meant that when you went to a 3 safety look, Chung and McCourty could play near the line of scrimmage and do stuff. Fair. I think I view it almost as the inverted thing here, where he can play the dime backer role that you want to call it. He can play in the slot. And the fact that he can play those means that now Kevin Byard is going to be free to man up on a tight end or to ball hawk. Craig Woodson will be free to do those things. I think it allow those guys to play more natural positions for what they do. I think he's just an upgrade on what you had to depth safety. Yeah. And I think people look at some of the volume stats from last year and the fact that he didn't play that much, and it's like, no, I liked him coming out of college. He earned starts for them in the playoffs. Obviously, there were some injuries there, but he got starts for a reason. They felt comfortable putting him out there, and this gets the double caveat of being PFF and preseason stats. But he has been the 2nd highest rated defensive player on Houston's defense in the preseason so far.
Yeah,
Hackley's been good. I was watching his tape against the Chargers earlier today, and he flies around. There's a play where he's like the cover 2 safety and the ball is completed in front of him and he just decks the dude and is trying to like punch the ball out as he's catching it. And he's not successful in that play, but do that enough, you're going to be successful with it. The intensities there, the forces there. He almost picked off Trey Lance. This is, again, deep down the field as a cover safety in that one. He comes downhill very hard and takes guys on. So I think in a Patriot scheme where you ask your safeties to do a lot of different things, he's a perfect fit. And you also add on that, like, Kevin Byard has a 1-year deal. This guy has 3 years left under contract.
That's fair. That's a fair point.
And to me, the biggest part of this, why I like this trade, Kayshon Boutte was not going to be part of your plans after this season. The money that you could have used to extend him went to A.J. Brown and Romeo Doubs. You're not going to pay him. And you basically get 2 situations. Either he plays really well for you and he's going to earn so much money that there's no way you keep him, or he's buried so far down the depth chart that you're not going to want him back and he's not going to want to come back. I don't think there was a world where he's returning. When you feel comfortable with your depth, because Mac Hollins is a solid player and Kyle Williams is playing well, to be able to trade from that depth to get a guy who you get for 3 years at a position of need on defense, who I think is he's a fit athletically, he's a fit schematically, he's a fit with his mentality. Vrabel likes to do who can hit hard on the back end.
Yeah.
I think that's a win. He plays special, and the other thing, Schooler hasn't practiced yet. You need us. We haven't really talked about that. We just kind of assumed he's going to be there. But if he's not ready, you needed a special teamer. And Marcellus Dials had some good tape, but I would much rather have Reed in that role than Marcellus Dials.
Yeah. Well, and so I guess we'll see, right? I mean, that's that's what's going to come down to. Can the kid play, right? Can he play?
Yeah.
And we don't know, right? He looked good at times for the Texans. I know Paper Waves is here. Paper Waves said loved him in the class 2020. I think he said he had him as his 9th overall safety or something like that. Maybe not that high, but I know that maybe you can clarify in the chat, Paper Waves. But I know he had him high, on his draft class last year. And so, if you think the kid can play, and then he can also play special teams for you, well, then it was 9th, by the way. But then it becomes a good trade, and then you feel like, okay, I like where this is headed. I like the way this is going. And so, if he can't play, and he's just a special teams guy, and AJ Brown and or Romeo Dobbs get hurt and miss time, and you're like, man, we really could have used some wide receiver depth. Well, then maybe you're going to look back and regret this trade,
That requires a lot to happen, and it's
right.
Well, and the flip side here is that if you kept Kayshon Boutte and your receivers stay healthy, but like Craig Woodson's also hurt right now,
right? Which
like
is true.
If Craig Woodson is like, oh, he's actually going to miss the whole first half of the season, you're going to be sitting there being, man, we could use another safety right now.
I mean, and that's definitely true. If we're at a situation where, Woodson is going to miss time, well, then of course you need safety depth, right? I don't know how, I don't know where that is, but, that's certainly the case.
Byard's an older player. Marcus, like all three of your outside corners, or of your corners in general, that are starting for you are guys who've gotten banged up. Marcus Jones is a small guy. Like, it just gives you depth at a couple spots there. Can I read off? I have the beast in front of me. Can I read off a synopsis here from Dan Brugler?
You absolutely can. Before you do that, though, just really quick on Paper Waves. If you're not following him, you should be following him, just so you know. But he had Reed ninth as his ninth overall safety last year. He had Woodson as his fourth overall safety last year. The guy knows what he's talking about.
Paper Waves knows ball.
Yeah, he sure does. Which is why he listens to us, obviously.
All right, here's part of the summary that Dane Brugler gives on Jaylen Reed. This is from his draft guide last year, The Beast. Quote, with his enforcer mentality, Reed is a blur working downhill, especially as a blitzer, and doesn't have a passive bone in his body. His tackling technique looks different from play to play, however, and the misses add up. He has the range to cover ground and explodes into the catch point in coverage, but his streaky angles and eye discipline can leave him out of position. Overall, Reed has the athletic traits and competitive urgency NFL teams want on their rosters, but he might be stuck as a backup and special teamer until he cuts down on costly mistakes. He has starting potential in the post if he finds better consistency. If you fix some of the little things, and you don't have to fix fully. If you just make him a little bit better as a tackler, a little bit more solid in coverage, especially that note as a blitzer with what we think the Patriots are going to want to do this season. Yeah, can he be your like discount Nick Eamon-Worry?
Right. Yeah.
Like, can you just play? Like, is this the kind of guy that means you can just play dime whenever you want to play dime? You can put three corners and three safeties out there. You can blitz from either side. You can cover a wide variety of body types. If he's the guy that allows you to do that on defense and they're able to unlock some potential here, I definitely think there's a scenario where he blossoms in New England and Boutte continues to be a 500-yard guy. And he gets, $15 million per year in the open market next year. And we're looking back like, man, yeah, we we sold at the right time and we sold high on a guy and we got someone who's going to be a fit for us cheap for years to come.
Right. And it's a good point. And that's, again, things have to work out that way. But I think if he ends up being an upgrade for you over Del Pettis, because he's a similar player to Del Pettis in play style. Del Pettis is flying around hitting people the same way that this guy is. And so if he's a little bit of an upgrade, over that, I think that's not a bad idea, right? And you feel like, okay, if he's a little bit of an upgrade there, maybe you like Del Pettis and you keep him on the roster still. Maybe you like John Saunders and you keep him on the roster still, and he becomes your your backup deep safety, right?
Well, the way I would look at this is that like the defense that won the Super Bowl last year that the Patriots were unable to compete with is one that was essentially able to flip the script. Offenses for years have been trying to figure out, how do we put the right guys on the field so that you have to put a bad coverage player out there, and then we're going to be able to throw at that guy and win the game. And the Seahawks said, no, we're going to get a team where everybody can play in coverage, and we're going to be able to play dime whenever we want to. Right. And you're still not going to be able to run against it because you play physically. This is a safety who absolutely fits that mold of what the NFL is doing. And I think if you look at in totality the moves the Patriots have made here, they looked at the Super Bowl last year and said, we need to get more powerful in the running game so that when teams go light on you, you can punish it. Enter Elijah Vera Tucker, enter Reggie Gilliam. We need individual wide receivers that scare defenses more. Enter AJ Brown and enter Romeo Dobbs. And defensively, we are going to lean into what worked for us last year. We're going to get a little bit more athletic at safety. We're going to get a ball hawk at safety in Kevin Byard. and we're going to get a more powerful edge rusher in Draymond Jones. And outside of that, we're going to leave it alone. And it's like, it's on offense, you are changing to try to beat the type of defense that you couldn't beat in the Super Bowl. And on defense, you are leaning into the things that worked for you last year and merging that with the type of defense that beat you in the Super Bowl.
Right.
Obviously, you need the individual moves to work out. This is all great in theory. You need to correctly identify the players and develop them into these molds with some luck.
Correct.
You need some bounces. Like Seattle doesn't go on the run they did last year, I don't think, without a 2-point conversion being alive and just walked into the end zone on a random Thursday night game. So, like, you need things to go your way still.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
it's true.
I like the theory the Patriots are building around here.
Yeah, it's true. And Thad mentioned this too, about the linebacker depth. Again, just to reiterate it, if he's that hybrid / linebacker / safety, then you're not as worried about that linebacker depth. And I think I think for me, that's a huge thing. And so, I hate the depth at linebacker. I hate it. Just absolutely hate it. It makes me sick to think about the linebacker depth that we have. But if you're going to lean more into having more safeties on the field, well, then you don't need as much linebacker depth. You still need some of it, right? You got to have one of those guys behind Spillane and Ellis has to be able to play. One of them. Yeah. But maybe you don't need two of them, right? Maybe you just need one. And so, I was hoping that would be Nnamdi. It doesn't seem like that's the case, but I don't know. But we'll see. So either way, it seems like this is the way the Patriots are going. It worked last year for Seattle. Maybe it'll work for you. You never know. And so, again, I think it's just really a question about, can the kid play? I understand trading Kayshon Boutte. I also understand the opinion of not liking the deal because, again, we overrate our players. We just do. Clearly, the league didn't feel the same way about Kayshon Boutte. He's been on the market since April, right? Like the league obviously didn't feel the same way about Boutte. And so, you get back something that hopefully can work, and then you go from there.
Yeah. Well, I think, Kayshon Boutte, a good player. A couple of his highlights from last year, you look at the Stingley stuff. He has something on Stingley that no one else did. He practiced against him every day in college. Like, they know each other very well, which that's going to be a scene in Houston. The two of them going after one another in practice. I can't wait for that. I'm excited that they're reunited because I also always loved Stingley. But some of his highlight plays are there. I also one of his highlight touchdowns is that one against the Titans. I believe was like L'Jarius Sneed's the last play of the game because he got hurt on it the deep post when he runs by him. And I think if you're another team, you're like, man, a couple of these plays are unique situations. He's also only on the field as much as he is. And also Hollins because Diggs is coming off a lot.
Mm-hmm. True.
Mays seems to be a super talented deep ball thrower. It's like Kayshon Boutte, that game against New Orleans where he's just mossing guys. It's unbelievable. I think, probably the most underrated play of the season for Boutte is his deep shot against Cleveland, where he runs that deep, got a slot fade almost, and gets open down the left sideline.
Yeah.
That one is incredible against the Browns defense that played great man coverage last year. But the one thing I have not been able to get, the taste I haven't been able to get out of my mouth all offseason is how ineffective their receiving core looked in both of the final two games. And I think it's pretty clear that the front office also felt the same way.
Yeah. And the Patriots went out and did something about it. And so, we'll see. Ultimately,
they might be wrong, but they did something about it.
And that's so the big thing is we have to trust that they did the right thing. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. We don't know. But we have to kind of just trust that they did. And so ultimately it's a depth move for a depth move. We know what we had. And Murph said it so well in the fact that what you're getting in Kayshon Boutte, right? The type of player he is. He's not, to me, in my opinion, he's not an elite starting wide receiver. He's a good depth piece for you that can go out and make plays in big situations, right?
He's Kendrick Bourne-like. He's the type of guy who, in a really good year, could probably give you 800 when things are working well, and also is probably going to have some years where it's 400.
Right, and that's a valuable player for you as a depth player, right? We don't know what we're getting out of Jaylen Reed. If we get the good stuff, the highlights, He can be a talented player that plays in a system that we want to play in, where we're playing fast football, where we're doing what Seattle did, which is daring teams to run because we're playing the dime. But, oh, no, you can't run because the guys we have out there can still be physical enough to stop the run. So, can they do that? That's going to be a question, to kind of see what happens here. It is interesting. I wish, as a fan and someone who's at practice every day, I wish they had made this trade 2 weeks ago so I could have seen Jaylen Reed myself in person.
Because
but
and I doubt we'll see if he plays, if he's ready to go for the preseason game on Thursday. Because
you never know.
It's Monday. I'm assuming, I don't think the league has even processed the trade yet, because if they didn't go through the 4 p.m. window today, the team hasn't officially announced it, I don't believe. So
yeah,
I'm assuming tonight, maybe tomorrow morning, he's flying to New England and probably doing the physical and all that stuff.
Right.
And he's probably not going to practice tomorrow because the paperwork won't be done. So I don't think he'll be ready for a game on Thursday. So we're not going to have any idea what he's going to look like until September 9th.
Yep.
And the flip side of this, we talk about Boutte that way. I don't think Boutte is going to be that receiver, that production for you this year, unless people get hurt. So you aren't trading a 600-yard potential, 700-yard potential receiver. You're trading a guy who, if he's producing that well, it means someone got hurt, or Kyle Williams isn't living up to the hype, or you had to pick between guys. And this is the issue, is that Boutte is more valuable to you than other teams because part of his value is his connection with Drake May. He's also less valuable because there are finite snaps to give to your wide receivers. He is not coming back after this season. And you've got a young player you want to develop, and you have to make a decision. And other teams know that. And that I feel like ends up being the most important part of this. And quite frankly, I think the fact that you're getting a player who I like as much as Jaylen Reed out of this, I'm pretty excited about. I thought the return here was going to be a 2028 6th round pick type of thing. I like Jaylen Reed as a player. So I think you're getting something more valuable than that, and you're still getting a draft pick. However, not super valuable that might be as a 7th in 2 years.
Right. Yeah. And that's
And they can still, one of the reasons you collect these day 3 picks is so if it's week 5 and you have to go get a backup guard, you can trade that 7th and go get a backup guard somewhere. That's part of the value, is that you can move it for other players.
Right. That's fair. Yeah. So we'll see. James does say he's a great point here. We're going to miss Sam Boutte. I'm going to miss Sam Boutte. But what are you going to do? We still say it. Yeah. It's fine. But we just won't be talking about Kayshon Boutte.
And he's just a fun guy to watch out there. I wish him the best in Houston. I think that team, to me, is going to be so interesting to watch this season. So I'm excited for it. I'm going to be looking up the preseason schedule after this.
Yeah, they were a fun team anyways. And I think, too, that, there's something to be said about just as a guy, right, going through the maturity issues that he went through, obviously had the whole betting scandal and all that stuff, and to come out of it as a mature player, as a much mature player than he was. I think that it says a lot about his character and the type of guy he is. And so, I'm happy for him. And so, it stinks, but I'm happy for him. So we'll see. And Dad, we'll leave it with this. Dad says, in Vrabel we trust. Maybe not with relationships, but with football, with the football team, in Vrabel we trust.
Head coach Mike Vrabel.
Had to do it. Head coach Mike Vrabel we trust.
Yes.
So anyways, that's what we got for you. We'll be back live with you on Thursday night after the Patriots' final preseason game against the Cleveland Browns, which, oh my God, what a dumpster fire that is. But nevertheless,
it really only dawned on me today that that's the team we're playing on Thursday.
It's almost unspeakable. It's crazy. I can't even imagine. If you're a Cleveland Browns fan, God bless you. You're going straight. I always feel like, they always say the people that suffer the most on earth go directly to heaven. Like, they have an easier path to heaven. Cleveland Browns fans just going straight to heaven. Some of them maybe not, but those of them that are good enough are going straight to heaven.
Yeah, I was going to say, take a look at some of the social media presences after that Deshaun Watson trade.
Some of them not so much, but the ones that are the true fans that are really stuck with the team and everything, Man, the suffering just doesn't end. But anyways, we'll be back with you Thursday night after that Browns game, talking to you about the Patriots' final preseason game. But thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other and go Pats.